Hello, my name's Eamonn Moran. I'm the inspector at the Victorian Inspectorate. And earlier today, I gave a presentation to a group as part of Law Week 2021 on the topic of maintaining trust in Victoria's integrity system. Now, I very much think it's important that community members know about the integrity system, know about the role that the Victorian Inspectorate plays within that system. So I'm recording this video to reach a wider audience. In this talk, I will talk about what is Victoria's integrity system, what is the Victorian Inspectorate, how do we seek to build and maintain trust in the integrity system, and in particular I will talk about welfare and how the importance of looking after the welfare of people who come into contact with the integrity system. So to begin with, what is Victoria's integrity system? There are numerous government departments, government agencies, local councils in Victoria that exercise a vast range of powers. They can make decisions about planning permits, building permits, vehicle registrations, driver licenses, dog licenses, professional and trade registrations, business licenses, street trading permits, busker permits, liquor licenses, working with children permits, and so on and so on. Modern day society is highly regulated. So there are lots of bodies who have got a role to play in that society. And then there's a body, Victoria Police, whose role, of course, is to enforce the law. And to do that, they have a wide range of powers, including doing things like issuing infringement notices or exercising powers of arrest or charging you with an offence, bringing you to court. So you may well feel that you've got an issue about how one of those bodies, whether a government department, government agency, local council, police, you may have an issue about what they have done in an interaction with you. You may feel that they made a decision that was unjustifiable. You may feel that they failed to adequately look into a complaint corruptly. For police, you may say they exercised undue force, excessive force in dealing with me. So what do you do if you've got a complaint about what one of those bodies, or the Victoria Police, for example, have done? Well, the good news is that there is somewhere to go, because Parliament has set up various bodies to which you can bring that complaint. The main ones that impact on most people are the Victorian Ombudsman and IBAC, the Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, in very broad terms, a complaint about a government department or agency or a council can be made to the Ombudsman, while a complaint about the police goes to IBAC. Okay, but it's a bit more complicated than that, because allegations of corruption about an official working in a government department or a council goes to IBAC and not the Ombudsman. What the Ombudsman looks at in broad terms is administrative decisions that do not have a corruption element, while IBAC's focus is very much on corruption or police misconduct. So looking at those two bodies, the Ombudsman and IBAC, they form part of Victoria's integrity system. And that system is designed to provide checks and balances against any abuse or misuse of power by those various agencies that mentioned at the start, any government agency or department or public official who are exercising these powers. So to do their job, the Ombudsman and IBAC have been given a broad range of powers, including power to call people in to be questioned or to require them to produce documents. IBAC might even haul you in for a public examination if you are a public official or someone who has had dealings with a public official and there's a strong whiff of corruption around. Now, wouldn't that be fun to be called in for questioning? There are other bodies in the integrity system, such as the Auditor General and the Information Commissioner, but I'm trying not to overcomplicate it by just concentrating on a few. And then there is the office, then there is the Victorian Inspectorate, or the VI for short. So the Victorian Inspectorate was established by a Victorian Act of Parliament passed in 2011, and the VI began its operations on the 10th of February 2013. So we're now just over 8 years old. The Inspectorate is an independent body. It's not subject to ministerial control or direction, and the Inspector has the status of an independent officer of the Parliament. The Inspectorate has reporting obligations to Parliament and is currently accountable to 2 parliamentary committees, principally the Integrity and Oversight Committee of the Parliament. At the moment, the staffing of the Inspectorate is 22 or 23. We're a small office with a big role to perform. If you can manage to get hold of the Victorian Inspectorate's annual report for 2019-20, copy of which is on the Victorian Inspectorate's website, on pages 14 to 15, you'll see a broad outline of the functions of the Victorian Inspectorate. It lists 11 bodies that we have got some role in relation to, and coming along on the 1st of July, there's an additional body, the Wage Inspectorate Victoria, that will be subject to oversight by the Victorian Inspectorate. So being involved with 12 different bodies is quite a big load of work. Effectively, we could be described as the watchdog of the watchdogs, because IBAC, Ombudsman, Auditor General, these various bodies are oversighting other people within the system who have got various powers, and then we are watching them. We have a vision of an integrity system that is robust and trusted. We set out to positively influence how these various bodies, these various integrity bodies exercise their powers and to bring about improvements in the system. Our key role is to ensure that the bodies that we oversight are acting lawfully and properly in carrying out their functions. And importantly, for quite a number of those bodies that are listed in our annual report, we can deal with complaints and can look at the conduct of their officers. So in summary, we have got public officials, public bodies out there in the Victorian public sector with a wide range of powers and functions which can affect the everyday life of Victorians. They are required to act in accordance with the law and in accordance with a set of values, including a duty to act with integrity. And to police their behaviour, we have a range of public bodies within the integrity system to whom you, as a member of the public, can complain. I've cited Ombudsman, IBAC as 2 examples. And if you have an issue with how those supervising bodies have acted, you can come to the Victorian Inspectorate and complain. And of course, the Victorian Inspectorate is someone looking over its shoulder, no lesser a body than the Parliament, through its parliamentary committees, principally the Integrity and Oversight Committee. The title of this session is Maintaining Trust in Victoria's Integrity System. I will talk a little bit about that in general terms, but what I want to concentrate on particularly today is what we do to look after vulnerable people who come into contact with the integrity system. That vulnerability may be because of language barriers or health issues, including mental health issues, or because of how they have been treated in the past. So how do we seek to build and maintain trust in the integrity system? We do that by watching and listening and acting when an issue arises that needs to be addressed in how other parts of the system have conducted themselves, and importantly, by always ourselves acting with the utmost integrity in everything that we do. We believe it's important for the Victorian Inspectorate to set a role gold standard if we are going to sit in judgment on others. Listening. So anyone who has had an interaction with IBAC or the Ombudsman, for example, or in any of the other bodies, Auditor General, that we've referred to, can bring a complaint to the Victorian Inspectorate on grounds set out in the Victorian Inspectorate Act 2011. So for the Ombudsman, the complaint may be about how they exercise any coercive power that they have. Now, a coercive power is a power that forces you to do something. It may be to produce a document, or it may be to come in for an examination. We can also look at how they've exercised their powers, whether they have complied with procedural fairness and how they have conducted themselves generally. Procedural fairness arises with the requirement that you must listen to people, you must allow them to present their case, you must give them an opportunity to respond to matters that are raised by others. For IBAC, our jurisdiction is much broader. It can really be, you can complain to us really about anything that IBAC has done in the performance of its functions. We will listen to your complaint. We will seek as much information from you as we can. And then importantly, we can seek information from the body about which you are complaining. We may even, for example, seek a copy of their file on the matter for their dealing with you. It's best for you to make your complaint in writing, because that means we'll have a permanent record of exactly what you have to say. And to make it easier, we do have an online complaint form that you can complete and submit online. Alternatively, you could download the form and fill it in by hand and post it to us. Or if you have got real difficulty in writing and communicating in writing, you can make an arrangement with the Victorian Inspectorate to come in, and we will take your complaint in person from you. We won't let ceremony stand in the way of you being able to access the services that we have. So that's listening. But what about watching? Well, the bodies that we oversight that do have the capacity to exercise coercive powers, for example, to summon you to produce documents or to be examined, are required by law to send in to us notifications. So that could be a copy of a summons, it could be a video recording of the examination. We get roughly 1,000 or so of those a year. It depends on really the volume at the particular year, what comes in. But on average, it's 1,000 plus. Now, when they come in, it's a lot of notifications for such a small entity. So we will do a triage process on everything that comes in. And then applying a risk-based approach, we'll do an in-depth review of as many of those that we can. So even if you don't complain to us about something that has happened to you during an interaction with IBAC or Ombudsman or any of these other bodies at an examination, we may note an issue on our review of it, on our review of the video recording, and we can follow it up. So that's watching. What about acting? Well, we've got a range of powers that we can exercise when we get a complaint in, or a matter has come to our attention through reviewing a recording of an examination, or from the various monitoring activities that we can conduct. And that action may vary anything from like an informal engagement with the body through to presenting a special report to Parliament. The process that we follow really depends on the nature of the complaint. It may be a phone conversation accompanied by a review of documents through to a full-scale investigation and inquiry, in which we then can exercise power to summons people to come in for an examination or to produce documents and to question them under oath. We have a set of integrity response guidelines which guide us how we should respond to any particular situation. By adhering to those guidelines, we ensure consistency and fairness in our approach to the bodies we oversight. So we're not treating anybody differently from any other. The same approach will be applied depending on the nature of the issue. The guidelines will tell us what would be an appropriate response in that situation. So one of the matters that the Victorian Inspectorate takes a particular interest in is the welfare of people who come into contact with any of the integrity bodies that we oversight, or indeed ourselves. That contact may be because you have made a complaint or because you are a witness in an investigation. So I'm going to deal with that welfare issue by talking about the things that we do to ensure the welfare of our own complainants and witnesses. And we expect that the integrity bodies that we oversight should show a similar concern for welfare issues. So on reviewing matters handled by an integrity body, we pay special attention to how they have treated persons who've made complaints to them or who are being examined by them. So the Victorian Inspectorate recognises that complainants who make contact with the Victorian Inspectorate may see the Victorian Inspectorate as a last resort to address their complaint. They may have raised the issue with one or more agencies over an extended period of time. They themselves may be vulnerable persons or persons who need support to help them to make a complaint or access the Victorian Inspectorate services. They may be fearful of reputational damage, detrimental action, or other consequences from making the complaint. The important thing is that no matter who the complainant is, the Victorian Inspectorate will demonstrate a regard for their welfare. We seek to give effect to this commitment by providing accessible, no-cost, and simple methods for people to complain to the Victorian Inspectorate. We'll provide support or adjustments if, because of a language barrier or any other reasons, you find it difficult to communicate with us. We will acknowledge and deal with your complaints in a timely way. We will provide transparent information about how your complaint is being handled. We will communicate with you in easy English or provide you with an audio recording of a letter back to you if you have got communication difficulties. We will protect the privacy of your information as much as possible. We will treat everyone in a way that is objective, respectful, and fair. And we will take appropriate steps to protect the health and safety of complainants when they identify a risk of self-harm that may involve, in an extreme case, of having the police make a welfare check. We will always consider and respect human rights. And then we will act on issues that we identify through our assessment of complaints by engaging with the agencies to achieve improvements in the integrity system, because that is what we feel is our aim, is to bring about improvement in how the whole system operates. We recognize that if we are conducting an investigation and exercising coercive powers, summoning a person in for examination, that has an impact on the welfare of the rights of the individual. It's got a real impact on them. And I'm sure it is not an overly pleasant experience to be summoned to attend, to be questioned over a number of hours or perhaps days. Witnesses may have accessibility, language, or communication needs. Witnesses may need support to make informed decisions about how to exercise their rights. They may be fearful of reputational damage or of other consequences from interacting with the Victorian Inspectorate. They may be anxious about being subject to a compulsory process where a failure to comply can result in a criminal penalty. They may have mental health conditions or other vulnerabilities. They may be reluctant to give information about their employer, their colleagues, or other people that they know. They may need access to affordable and effective legal advice or representation. But no matter who the witness is, the Victorian Inspector will demonstrate a regard for their welfare. How do we demonstrate that regard? We do that by making appropriate inquiries into a witness's needs. We communicate with them in as plain a language as possible. We carefully explain to them their rights and obligations and their role in the investigation, and we provide them with contact details for people within the inspectorate to whom they can ask questions, or from whom they can seek more information. And I think it's also important to point out that while I'm referring to investigations and summoning, that's in most cases the last resort we will do, because we will attempt to get information voluntarily, through voluntary interviews, through asking agencies to provide us with information without resorting to a compulsory process. We will consider the potential for any action of the Victorian Inspectorate to have an impact on a person's reputation. We will ensure that we afford procedural fairness to witnesses or anyone else that we're dealing with. We will protect the privacy of their information. Again, we will treat everyone in an objective, respectful and fair way, and we will strictly comply with our obligations under law in conducting our investigations. As I mentioned, welfare is something we pay particular attention to, and when anyone comes along here, we will make a welfare check on them. We've got a checklist that we will go through a series of questions to make sure that there are no issues that would be of concern to us. If there were, we would postpone that examination. We ensure that the physical environment is adjusted so that any witnesses can feel free to leave at any time during an adjournment or break in the proceeding. The doors are open, people can come and go. So I feel it's important that they know they have that capacity to leave and then come back, of course, at the appointed time. At the commencement of an examination, we tell a witness that they can request a break. And if we take a break, of the length of that break and of what they can do during that break, and of the availability of the various facilities here at the Victorian Inspectorate. And then after an examination or interview, the next day we will contact the witness as a follow-up to ask how are they, what impact did coming to the VI have on them. Those are the standards we apply to ourselves. Those are what we look to see agencies that we oversight complying with. And if we have got concerns, we will follow that through and make sure that improvements can be made. We published a report in October 2018 on witness welfare in IBAC investigations and put forward a range of suggestions how things could be improved to lessen the impact on the welfare of a witness. We have information on our website about witnesses, about the rights of witnesses, the measures that they can take to, or that are available to help them in the process, and of course contact details for organisations like Victoria Legal Aid. When you bring someone in for questioning, you've got various obligations to tell people their rights, even if they're legally represented. Unless they say, my lawyer has explained that to me and I don't want to hear it again, there's an obligation on the Victorian Inspectorate and on the other bodies within the system to explain the rights to a person. For example, if there's a mental impairment issue, the right to have an independent person available. If someone is under 18, the right to have a parent or guardian available. If there's a language difficulty, the right to an interpreter. If you need a support person, that will be considered and approved. So you can have someone with you that will give you comfort during the process. We can check that these things are being done in the agencies that we oversight through our review of the video recordings that we received. And of course, procedural and fairness is so important, that capacity to ensure that anyone who's interacting with us has an opportunity to fully present their case and has an opportunity to respond to anything that's being said by anyone else in the process. So in conclusion, the vision that the Victorian Inspectorate has is of an integrity system that is robust and trusted. We aspire to a position where the public has confidence and trust in the integrity system and know that they can come to the Victorian Inspectorate to protect their rights. We seek to build that public confidence and trust by influencing the conduct of other integrity bodies, by educating the public about their rights when they become enmeshed in the integrity system, by seeking to achieve satisfactory outcomes for complainants to the greatest extent possible within our powers, and by holding integrity bodies to account when required, and by being a model integrity agency ourselves. Thank you very much.